Good morning, good afternoon, happy Friday, wherever you happen to be in the world. Thanks for joining us for the last 7 days. I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Andrew Sparrow. Welcome to BBC World.
Today is December the 1st. Wow, it's December already. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about news over the last week and how it impacts our world of PLM, CAD, MES, MOM, manufacturing, and any other three-letter acronym you can think of.
We're going to be talking about aerospace, automotive, high-tech, people, and culture.
Coming up,
Boeing to double Middle East fleet by 2042.
Military training in the metaverse.
Rolls-Royce sustainable aviation fuel flight.
Airbus flies helicopters with a tablet.
And Airbus is approaching its delivery targets for 2023.
Fuel removed from a failed landing into the ocean.
And Ford is focusing its focus on cost reductions.
Cybertrucks are finally here.
Musk and those strikers, UAW.
Chinese cars in Mexico.
And Ford is expanding in Chihuahuas.
And apparently a fake woman causes an exodus.
Ready, set, go. So first up, Boeing is forecasting wide-body airplanes will comprise 45% of deliveries to Middle East airlines over the next 20 years. That is the highest percentage of the 10 global regions featured in Boeing's commercial outlook. The region's fleet of dedicated freighters is projected to more than double to 180 jets by 2042. Airlines in the Middle East have increasingly expanded their influence and reach, transforming the region into an international air transit hub. Air travel and cargo demand continues to gain momentum, driven by significant economic growth and national development plans. As airlines in the region will require efficient and versatile fleet solutions, Boeing's products will be ready to meet market demands. The CMO projects delivery of 3,025 new commercial airplanes in the Middle East by 2042, including 1,350 wide bodies. Pretty amazing growth going on down there.
Yeah. Boeing's on the up and up. I mean, they also just won a $2.3 billion contract from the U.S. government to build KC-46A tankers for the Air Force.
Wow. So $2.3 billion contract, 3,000 new commercial planes in the Middle East over less than 20 years.
Yeah.
Those are some big goals. There's got to be a lot to consider when you're ramping up to make thousands of planes. What sort of planning do you guys think they need to be considering here?
Boeing has massively invested in its product life cycle. I think for Dassault, going back a few years, maybe 2018, I think it was the biggest ever deal. I think they did a $1 billion deal with Dassault. Obviously, it's morphed over time with some of the kind of concerns that they've had, not with Dassault, but with aircraft. I think we know about the 37, things like that. But for me now, and they're pretty well set up for it, is ensuring seamless integration across the entirety of their product life cycle. So with fireworks going off, I'm excited to say that PLM MESMOM has to be fully integrated, and they're doing a pretty good job of it, I've got to say. Because any breakdown or inefficiencies integration is going to lead to disruptions, going to lead to delays, potential issues in quality control. So they're going to really need to manage the network of suppliers, subcons, and teams involved throughout that whole product life cycle. For me, that's number one. Yeah. Secondly, they need to be collaborating with their supply chains. And thirdly, regulatory controls. Obviously, it's a newish market in the Middle East, so regulations are going to be evolving and morphing as they go. So I think maintaining that in their product life cycle will be critical.
Yeah. And making sure that they've got the right talent to both manage and build the technology necessary there.
Yeah.
It's a big feat.
Definitely.
You bet. Speaking of managing and maintaining your talent, or maybe training them, Lockheed Martin is doing something pretty interesting. They're going to try to meet military training needs in the metaverse. So we know that global security threats are constantly evolving, and that just the way that the world is constantly evolving. So they're working on a fully immersive virtual world in the metaverse so that they can increase training and simulation realism to ensure that training is effective and, real. So from futuristic training platforms with interactive cockpits to simulating opposing forces and wargaming exercises, customers can find ways to predict and prevent sooner. These metaverse simulation training are allowing for immersive pilot training that's cost effective and sustainable, for the ability to train across a multi-domain environment, for the option to use non-laser live training technology without having any line of sight limitations, the ability to replicate all of the necessary battle spaces in a realistic way, and to evaluate a range of cyber threats to acquisition programs. Yeah. This is fascinating.
This is revolutionary, I would say. I mean, HR needs to be rethinking what training and development looks like. I think we're going to see a couple different things from the emergence of this technology, right? Increased job satisfaction. I mean, who's not going to get excited about being fully immersed in an extremely engaged training program, rather than, sitting in a dim room with terrible lighting and an old manual
and a bad trainer.
That's right. And a bad trainer. Exactly.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, though, we've got a diverse technical skill gap, right? Not all employees may be or will be equally comfortable or skilled in using advanced VR or simulation technologies. So that's going to be a challenge for sure moving forward. Probably one of the most diverse workforces that we've ever seen from a technology standpoint. And then, of course, with the increase of virtual environments and advanced technologies, there's heightened risks related to privacy and security. I mean, protecting that sensitive employee data, as well as any proprietary information about an organization that's used during that training. Those are going to be big concerns as this emerges.
Did you guys ever see the movie The Last Starfighter? I think it's like a 1980s movie. But it feels like that future is here. Yeah, before your time. That future is here, where we are basically using video games to actually qualify and train folks.
There you go. Yeah. To me, the product life cycle, this is going to be a challenge for them, because we're not talking about traditional Lockheed product life cycle management of discrete manufacturing. We're talking about software life cycle management on this one. So imagine all of those changes are going to be ongoing. So literally version control, effective change management, and embedding that back into the training environment. So it's going to be challenging, but I think, Greg, you've touched on it. It's the way forward now. We're not looking for replacing physical training because people are still going to enjoy that. I think it's an and we're going to be doing this as well, which just how heightens the skill level for people to use Lockheed products in this case. Yeah, it's good. So next up, Rolls-Royce. So the sustainable aviation fuel, recently renamed SAF by me, maybe. Journey continues next week. This week. I think it's actually taken place now. When Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engines are to take to the skies to power Virgin Atlantic's Flight 100, the world's first 100% SAF transatlantic flight by a commercial airline. The historic flight demonstrated the capability of SAF as a safe drop-in replacement for jet fuel and provide further proof that there are no engine technology barriers to use the 100% sustainable aviation fuel. Amazing stuff that's going on out there. Can they keep it up?
Well, if you remember from, was it 2 weeks ago, we talked about Boeing and SAF, and I think it was that the ingredients, so to speak, for this were grains, agricultural waste, food waste, forestry residues, wood mill, a lot of waste. And it's cool to see that happening where you're taking basically waste and turning it into fuel. But there's a lot to be considered here as well. I mean, you've got the feedstock handling and the variability in what happens with these, because every waste is not going to be manufactured or created the same way, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
impurities, contaminants coming in. It's a real challenge, and not to mention the certification and quality assurances processes to make sure it's been uniformly blended and that it's been tested correctly. So yeah, big stuff. Good future. I can understand why it costs a lot more money, because I think we said with Boeing it was, I don't know, 10 times the cost of regular fuel,
it was a huge,
aviation fuel. It was a huge disparity, I know. But obviously it's a bit like an EV. It's a lot more expensive to produce an EV these days. You got to invest in sustainability. So good stuff.
Yeah. So while Boeing and Rolls-Royce are looking at finding ways to do the sustainable aviation fuel, basically new ways to fuel flying, Airbus has found a new way to control flying. Maybe not new, but they're doing something in a much bigger scale than we've ever seen before. Because we know drones exist. You can fly those off your little remote control tablet and you can program those. Airbus has succeeded in testing a new simplified human machine interface called the HMI, along with an advanced autonomous features through a project they have codenamed Vertex. These technologies are controlled by a touchscreen tablet and aim to simplify mission preparation and management, to reduce the pilot workload for the helicopter, and to increase safety. They just completed a 1-hour test flight from takeoff to landing, going through a predefined or pre-waymarked course where the system was able to detect unforeseen obstacles and automatically recalculate a safe flight path. So it's like a combination between a pilot driving it from the tablet and the system itself making automatic changes using, I'm probably guessing, some AI here.
Yeah. I think this is also some good insight into a future job description of a pilot, right? Transforming their role from hands-on control to monitoring and supervising the technology and stepping in as needed, right? Going back to the need, we've talked about this before, I'll talk about it again, the need for reskilling an entire workforce. I mean, we're going to see an uprising in HR training. We've already talked about that today and what that's going to look like in development. I could also see a huge uprising in OCM over the next decade or so, simply because of all these changes that are happening to roles and people.
As long as you're not talking about an AI uprising.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe later, but
let's take to the ocean. Airbus is to launch a new low carbon ocean fleet featuring Flettner rotors. So Airbus isn't usually thought of from an ocean-going perspective. But the aerospace giant has announced that it plans to replace its charter fleet that carries components across the ocean with greener, more efficient ships starting in 2026. Airbus is maintaining its own fleet of 3 chartered vessels, which ferry aircraft subassemblies across the Atlantic Ocean.
I think the A320 production this was expected to rise to 75 aircraft per month by 2026, and that adds a hefty carbon footprint, which they're concerned about. And so each of these transports is designed to help reduce that with this technology here. They're going to be capable of carrying they're capable of carrying 70 40-foot containers, as well as 6 single-aisle aircraft sub-assembly sets, up to a maximum of 4 set maximum on the fleet ship. So that's a lot of transportation happening of aircraft parts on the ocean.
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you see with this?
Well, have you seen it personally?
It looks like this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's not made for beauty, is it? That's for sure. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I don't think I'm going to meet anybody who'd go, "Oh, what a beautiful ocean-going yacht. I'd like to look like that." But in terms of challenges, to me, there's quite a few. I mean, this is new technology because apparently those 6 funnels, they are funnels. They're not rotor blade whatevers. They suck in the air, apparently, that propels the ship forward. So it's new technology. So number one, this innovative technology needs to be integrated into a ship design. That's number one. Number two, then they've got that whole supply chain to be integrated. So to me, they're the top 2 at least that they need to be challenged with.
And this certainly touches on all the aspects of creating something. I mean, they are creating a new ship just to be able to transport the parts needed for their flying ships. And so this is a whole new product life cycle consideration here, with design for sustainability, maintenance, probably a lot of regulatory compliances as well. This is a cool undertaking.
Yeah. And of course, the need for a specialized workforce, right? Both cultivating and retaining that talent is going to be a huge challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So talking of Airbus, this is something I found this week. So Airbus is edging towards its 2023 delivery goal after an 18% increase in October. Airbus needs to deliver 161 aircraft in the last 2 months of the year to reach its full year delivery target. But that is fractionally below the performance seen in the closing stages of last year. So the plane maker confirmed it had delivered 71 aircraft in October, up 18% from the same month in 2022, and bringing the total for the first 10 months to 559 jets. In the final 2 months of 2022, Airbus delivered 166 jets. So frankly, no big deal for Airbus. And this is classic, because if there's one discrete manufacturer out there that's really got its act together in terms of manufacturing, it's got to be Airbus. They're right up there, because we know they know how to manufacture at scale in a highly complex, huge assembly environment. To me, their challenges are going to be kind of supply chain, because the Airbus is a pretty well-oiled machine. So it's about supply collaboration, communications, predictive analytics of, is that supply coming in through in its entirety so I can hit my target of 161 aircraft, logistics management. So that product lifecycle management solution, supply chain solution, manufacturing execution, operation solution needs to be really, really wanting, not for them in-house, but more for the outhouse, out into the ecosystem. I might add quality in there, but honestly, they're pretty darn good at it, Airbus.
Yeah, you're saying Airbus is basically a well-oiled machine. Speaking of which, of well-oiled machines, the Navy on Monday said they removed the fuel from a plane that overshot a Hawaii runway. There was a plane that overshot the runway, landed into an environmentally sensitive bay, and they were able to remove an estimated 2,000 gallons, or for the Europeans listening, that's 7,500 liters of fuel that was on board the plane. The plane is still there. They're not sure when they're going to get the plane out, but all of the fuel is now out of the ocean. And this bay is a home to coral reefs, to ancient Hawaiian fish pond, and it's a breeding ground for hammerhead sharks.
Wow. Wow.
And
Reminds me, many years ago, I moved to Hong Kong, and they used to have an airport called Kai Tak, and it was always known as the world's hardest to land airstrip in the world. You would fly through the high rises, you'd come in on your 47, you'd look out the window, people would be there eating their dinner. It was a really surreal experience. And I remember when I landed and I met a guy that night, and he said, how was your landing? I said, it was pretty good. He said, because last week one overshot the runway and dropped straight into the Hong Kong harbor. So
You're like, thanks for telling me that.
coral
After
reefs
I've
there.
had a
They'd
few
already
drinks.
destroyed that. Pardon me.
It's yeah, it's neat to be in a world now where I think previously, if this had happened, the fuel would have just been left there. Like, you wouldn't spend the expense to get it out. And so at least we're a little more
Exactly.
concerned about our
We
environment than we
definitely
used to
weren't
be.
talking about fuel way back then. I mean, anybody
no,
knows Kai Tak, they'll know that's at least 30 years ago. No, a
Yeah.
little longer, a little less, 28, 27 years. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're not going to age ourselves. Speaking
No.
of fuel and maybe driving, Ford focuses on reducing cost and improving quality. Ford is now focused on trying to reduce cost across the business, from commodities to labor to warranties to the design to the just entire design of the third generation electric vehicles. It's an immediate focus that they're trying to do cost savings over the next 2 years, because they've said the cost of the new UAW labor deal is going to be about 8.8 billion, and they have to work to cut that cost somewhere. So Ford is trying to reduce the complexity of future vehicle designs, to cut the hours needed to produce these vehicles, to trim the warranty cost, and they're saying they see opportunities in automation.
Yeah, I think there's huge ways to go on EV cost reduction, as we know. Um, I think perhaps a lot of these legacy EVs need to adopt some of the Tesla integrated supply chain, vertically integrated, do a lot more in-house rather than out-house, maybe, without being too controversial. But certainly, first principles applied to battery design and production needs to be a big one, because batteries are what, 30% of a vehicle versus an ICE, which is down at like 8, 9, 10% of a vehicle. So they've got to bring that battery cost down. That's got to be a big one. And maybe extend some of those savings into supply chain and see what they can do as well.
Speaking of Tesla, wasn't there something pretty big that just happened?
Yeah, it's the good one, this. So Cybertrucks, which we've been talking about forever, it feels, Tesla is set to start deliveries of its long-delayed Cybertruck electric pickup. Elon tempered investor expectations, citing problems in ramping production of what he called a radical, definitely product. He said, "We dug our own grave with the Cybertruck," warning that it would take a year to 18 months to make the vehicle a significant cash flow contributor. Pricing was revealed Thursday so prices came out yesterday. How much for the
It
Cybertruck?
was supposed to be what, 50K, right?
I probably wouldn't pay more than 60.
Okay, yeah. So first out the gate, 80,000.
Ooh.
Wow.
Nice, not bad. Hey,
Right.
that's for the dual motor. And then if you're feeling particularly holiday festive, buying great gifts, you can hit 100,000, 99,999 for the tri-motor configuration. That little baby goes from 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. Nice one. I like it, I must admit. I mean, I'm not a big truck guy, but I mean, if I was to be, I'd probably go with a Cybertruck. He said, Elon said that they're likely to reach a production rate of roughly 250,000 Cybertrucks a year in 2025, so probably 100. Anyway, Cybertruck, which is 2 years behind schedule, enters a hot and highly profitable pickup truck market to compete with the likes of Ford's F-150 Lightning, Rivian Automotive's R1T, and GM's Hummer EV.
Which do you guys like the design of more? Do you like the Airbus ship or Tesla Cybertruck? Which
I've
one's
got to go
prettier?
with
Which
it.
one's
I got to go
uglier?
with the Airbus ship, actually.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think I'd want a yacht that looked like that, put it that way. Given that yachts are meant to look stunningly beautiful, so I'd probably be going
Yeah,
with
but
the
think of you could
Cybertruck.
hang hammocks from those, like a giant hammock from those poles, right? I mean,
now
Ocean
you're
going
speaking my
cruise with 1,000
language.
people on it. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
cool.
Speaking of Musk, the richest man on earth said this week that he has worked hard to create opportunities for staff across the hierarchy of his company, even claiming that he had made factory workers millionaires thanks to the stock options they received.
That's true.
As a result, and Andrew, you'll probably like this, he's implied there's no need for unions at Tesla. Direct quote: "If Tesla gets unionized, it's because we deserve it." And so, basically, Elon is saying that there's a
That's
chance. There's a
It's
chance
not
that
an
someday
unreasonable statement. I mean, unions came about for a reason, didn't they? Let's be
they did.
honest. It didn't
Yeah,
happen by accident.
yeah,
So he feels, I mean, obviously that's a conversation to be had not just with Elon within his organization as to whether they need it or don't, but
yeah.
equally he's right in saying if we end up with one, then it's our own fault.
Yeah,
True.
very much so.
Yeah.
Musk believes that it's generally not good to have an adversarial relationship between one group of the company
Creates a
and another
divide, doesn't
group.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Them and
very
us.
much so. But he also believes, right, that unions naturally try to create negativity within a company. But regardless of, even the UAW's tactics, the union has notched some high profile victories in recent months, including a record 33% pay hike for the Detroit Three, Ford, GM, and Stellantis.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Yep.
which we're already seeing making changes, as we just mentioned above. Ford's trying to cut costs now to pay for this pay hike. So it's going to be interesting seeing where the future holds with all of this. And we're talking about manufacturing of EVs, which is a whole technology thing, which I guess is a good reason to switch into this section. Hey Joseph, welcome to the technology section here. What have you brought for us as far as what's happening with, let's say, manufacturing?
EVs, automotive, and techie things, specifically for Mexico, guys. So looks like the Chinese cars are growing up in Mexico and its manufacturing. They are planning to export everything to North America. And also for 2024, EVs are coming up. So this new industry for Mexico at least is growing a lot. Yeah, looks like all the Asian brands are trying to grow right here with this economy, guys. So, for example, the rapid growth of Chinese car sales in Mexico has positioned the country as a significant market for Chinese automobile exports. In 2023, China stands as the second largest car importer to Mexico, with Chinese cars accounting for nearly 20% of total car sales.
20%.
This surge reflects the increasing preference of Mexican consumers for Chinese vehicles, guys.
So has Mexico got the charging infrastructure to sustain that volume of sales?
That's right. Years ago, Tesla started with all the infrastructure, and right now,
Okay.
different other companies are putting different stations to do that. So, for example, you can go to a normal mall in different cities, and you will find a station to recharge your EV. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. So the Chinese are moving into manufacture. I get that. Nearshore manufacturing makes total sense. So the primary reason, though, I think you said, is to manufacture in Mexico to sell to North America, into the US, maybe Canada. But equally, 20% of sales are being done in Mexico as well itself. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The reason of this, Andrew, is that all the Chinese brands that we have are putting really low prices
Yeah.
for this economy. So you can select, and in your market, you can pick up a really good car with a lot of techie things inside your car with a really good technology for a low price. So
Right.
that is the difference, and that's why it's getting really competitive.
Yeah.
This isn't
What's
just
interesting? I was just going to say what's interesting about the Chinese moving into Mexico is China not that many years ago was an emerging economy, and if you went to China and they had a manufacturing problem, throw more people at it, put more people on the lines. That the manual intervention of more bodies, so to speak, at a low cost was how they did things. Then they realized to be globally competitive, internationally competitive, they had to start automating, digitizing. So they went through that journey. It's not dissimilar to what Mexico is going through now, which is rather than throw people at it, you have to digitize and automate, get your product lifecycle management figured out, get your mess mom figured out, etc. So really interesting that a nation that's been through it is moving in there. So they're going to be a real competitor down there, not just for pricing, but for actual efficiencies. Those guys are good at what they do. So fascinating for Mexico.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, Andrew, to your point, not only do they know how to manufacture at scale, right, but
Yeah.
they seem to have learned how to adapt to both local and international market preferences and economic conditions, right? So there's certainly an importance to understanding the consumer, both locally, internationally,
Yeah.
to successfully penetrate that market. And it's certainly adding to the already dynamic environment and the auto landscape that we're seeing. Not only are we competing against the introduction and rollout of EVs, but now our competitors are getting smarter in how they're operating.
Yeah.
And this isn't just a in the future thing. I think, Joseph, you said this is happening in 2024, which 2024 is a month away. I don't know if y'all realize that, but we're almost at 2024. And so we're going to be seeing electric vehicles that were created by Chinese companies, manufactured in Mexico, and being sold in the US by 2024. That does feel like a huge change. But are electric vehicles the only car manufacturing happening in Mexico?
No, sir. Because as far as you know, guys, in Mexico, the businesses the government has is gasoline, right? With Pemex, with diesel, with a lot of oils industry. So also Ford is investing and expanding its plants of manufacturing in Chihuahua, in Delicias, Chihuahua. Okay, so they are planning to create more and more engines for gasoline and diesel. Why? Because the economy, at least for Latin America and Mexico, is with gasoline and also diesel. But the EVs also are coming up. And that is the idea why we are growing up in that industry to eventually export everything to North America. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Is
In looking into it a little bit, I ran a quick Google search here. It sounds like the Ford Chihuahua plant's been around for 40 years now. They've produced 14 million engines, which is, I feel like, it's a massive achievement.
14 million.
As somebody who would be working there, I would be excited about that achievement. Additionally, their focus on sustainability, it looks like, and environmental responsibility is something that I would be excited to work there, right? It's certainly a case study in how to attract and retain the best of the best in a manufacturing environment. So certainly something that, Ford is probably going to try and carbon copy the Chihuahua plant.
Yeah, I remember when Ford went in there, it was significant because they'd been manufacturing everything, Detroit, etc. And suddenly they said, nope, we're going to manufacture in Mexico. It was a big shift. Didn't realize it was 40 years ago, though.
I think when we think of manufacturing in Mexico, I think it's probably fair to say that most Americans think of not necessarily high quality and not necessarily environmentally friendly. But that's not exactly the truth, right, Joseph? Like there's...
Exactly. You're right, Brian. Normally what people expect or think about it is that even you have a really cheap workforce, you will need some technology right there, because you are talking about global operations, global manufacturing, and you need to have a really good product to go in the global market. Okay, so to put a really good product into quality and with different really good capabilities, you must control technology through digital twin. PLM, could be MES systems or more. You know a lot of different kind of systems, but it's a must to control the supply chain and your operations.
Yeah, I know. Got it. Yeah.
Speaking of Googling, I also just learned something new during this, but the dog breed Chihuahua is called that because it actually originated in Chihuahua, Mexico. So that's a fun news fact for the day that I did not know. It makes sense because of the name, but there we go.
Duh.
Speaking of fun news facts, as you can see right now, we got a panel right here that is just 4 guys talking to you. And we're going to go into a very controversial subject here. Are women fake or real?
Yeah, it's a good question, Brian. They are very real, unless you were planning to go to DevTernity, which is a conference for software developers. DevTernity this week, the organizer admitted on social media that one of their featured speakers that they had advertised with was an automated AI generated female that they had used to advertise. So consequently, tech leaders at both Amazon and Microsoft dropped out. They learned that there had been almost false.
So what were they planning to do? Put a hologram up there, or just cancel at the 11th hour?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I know technology is getting pretty advanced, but I would think people would notice that. And so I sit back and go, man, what's next?
Wow. Yeah.
But this generation of a fake AI profile, right? To advertise and convince people that the conference is worth attending raises ethical concerns. And we've had this conversation from the beginning, but I think I'm never going to be the first one that's going to be like, yeah, let's add more regulatory procedures around AI and the use of it.
But I think we're going to be going to conferences soon where we are listening to AI.
Yeah,
I think it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. We just need to set out from the beginning and establish those clear policies, right, regarding the ethical use of AI, just to maintain trust and credibility, right? We know that goes a long way.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember reading about this one where one of the Amazon Web Service executives, it was Christine Howard, posted on LinkedIn, I found out that I was the only woman on the agenda and some of the others advertised may not be real. And that's why she dropped out. And then a bunch of other speakers dropped out because they're like, yeah, it seems like a interesting choice to make fake speakers that are going to get found out. But yeah. So that was fake, but the news today was real. And we just hope that everybody watching maybe was entertained a little bit, hopefully learned something new. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Can we say that? Is that copyrighted? We'll go for it anyway.
Sounds good. Have a good week.
Have a great week.
So everybody, thanks for joining us. Have a good one.